Never drink tea again until you watch this. So if you love your tea as I do you drink it from this type of tea bag? Now, unfortunately, these types of tea bags, it's been found in the research now, contains microplastics. And of course, microplastics, not great for our health, but they can act like estrogen. And these are estrogen mimicking, meaning that these xenoestrogens, so the toxic estrogens that we can pick up from plastics in our environment and in our tea, will have a negative impact on our cellular function. They can fit into our estrogen receptors and not be the best thing. It can cause estrogen dominance in both men and women, and a bunch of symptoms in terms of hot flashes, weight gain, and irritability, and the list goes on and on. So this is something that we definitely want to avoid using this type of tea bag. I have other tips coming up on what to do if you have these still in your home. Now, another issue with conventional tea, and this used to be my problem that I didn't realize, the tea that I was drinking every day, probably for about 20 years at least, contained fluoride. So this is something that has been discovered and tested in different and various teas around the world, that it can be toxic with fluoride. Now, fluoride is one of the halogens. When we look at the periodic table, all of these elements in this group, like fluoride, bromine, chlorine, unfortunately can have a negative impact on our thyroid health, because what it will do is displace our iodine. And our iodine, of course, we need for our healthy thyroid hormone production, but that fluoride preferentially is going to displace and be utilized in our cells. It is going to displace our iodine, impacting our thyroid, which can make you gain weight. You're not feeling well because of that fluoride in your tea. And another thing to be aware of is mold in tea. So if you're not buying fresh tea by its nature, it is dried out, but can get moldy over time. So always make sure that you are purchasing, a fresh batch of that tea. And of course, mold can exacerbate issues that you may have in your gut microbiome and make candida issues much worse. So you want to avoid tea, if you do have chronic microbiome issues. But my tips here is, if you do have these types of tea bags, always cut them open. If you've got to finish off your last batch of them, cut them open and put that loose tea into, you can strain it, of course, but put it into your hot water and drink your tea that way, so you don't get that exposure to the microplastics. And of course, if you can, always buy organic loose leaf tea. That's the best way to go in terms of drinking your tea. I hope this helps you, especially if you do have issues with your hormones, maybe with your thyroid. It's a change that I made in my own life, and it made a world of difference. For more tips on how to fix your estrogen dominance, please check out my video, Women's Hormones: 9 Tips to Fix Estrogen Dominance. I'll see you there.